The screams were not human anymore. They had started that way, sharp, ragged bursts of pain, and then, over the hours, warped into something guttural, choked, feral. The sound that echoed off the frozen alloy walls of the slaver's crown bore no resemblance to words. It was what remained after dignity had been dissected, after sanity had been peeled back like a synthetic skin. It was the wail of a creature being unmade, piece by piece, in the dark. Private Dane Kepler had lasted longer than any of the others. He was a low-tier reckoned scout from Earth's Atlantic Division, undertrained, underarmed, but cursed with a will that refused to break. Even now, as the bone hooks held him aloft, threaded through his shoulders and spine, he didn't plead. Not anymore. Not since they removed his fingernails and replaced his kneecaps with acid drills just to test the neural responses. The chamber around him pulsed with a sickly green glow. The air hummed with plasma energy and the faint, cloying scent of burnt skin. Machines ticked and whirred in the corners, half-organic, half-synthetic hybrids that blinked with alien intelligence. He hung like meat between them. In front of him, Commander Vrexel of the Kravor Empire paced silently. Vrexel was tall, 7 feet of twisted, metallic sinew and armored chitin, a breathing contradiction of evolutionary paths. His mandibles clicked slowly, rhythmically, like someone drumming their fingers against a glass coffin. His eyes, 9 of them, moved independently across his upper face, cataloging Kepler's responses. He held no weapons. He needed none. Torture, for Vrexel, was a ritual art passed down through 1,000 generations. You are not a remarkable specimen. The alien hissed through a translator embedded in his throat. His voice warbled slightly, like it was spoken through a leaking pipe. Your brain mass is unimpressive. Your musculature, primitive. But still, you refuse. Kepler raised his head slightly, blood drooling from the corner of his mouth. His skin had turned a pale shade of gray-green, mottled with bruises and burns. One eye was swollen shut. He managed a grin, jagged and faint. Guess I'm just stubborn, he croaked. Vrexel's clawed hand snapped forward, quick as lightning, and jammed into Kepler's side. A new scream tore out of his throat, raw and uncontrollable, as the claw spun, releasing a series of nanite sensors directly into his liver. They activated instantly, replicating and spreading. Pain. Burning pain. Every nerve screamed in 12 directions at once. You do not comprehend your position, human, Vrexel said coldly. Your hive world has a weapon. We intercepted its signal 3 weeks ago in your outer system. A black construct, quantum-linked, controlled by no name, no origin, only designation. Seraph Zero. You will tell me where it is. Kepler laughed. Not much. A rasp, a broken chuckle. But real. Something defiant flickered behind his one good eye. That's not a weapon, he wheezed. That's a warning. Vrexel tilted his head, visibly intrigued. Explain. Kepler grinned wider, blood coating his teeth. If Seraph Zero is coming for you, you're already dead. The Kravor commander didn't speak. His mandibles flexed. Slowly, he stepped back into the green light and made a gesture with 2 fingers. A scalpel arm extended from the ceiling, needle-thin, glistening, and carved a line down Kepler's chest, precise and slow. The soldier's body spasmed, veins bulging, breath catching in half-formed screams. You will die before this day ends, Vrexel said softly. But before you die, I will cut your memories free from the folds of your brain. I will extract every secret. Your death is irrelevant. Your suffering, instructional. Kepler's vision blurred. Blood slid into his left eye. The world tipped sideways, faded to white, then red, then darkness again. In his last moment of consciousness, he thought not of Earth, not of home, not of orders or command. He thought of the child in Creo Bay 4, the one who had clung to his boot and whispered, "Please bring my mom back." And then he thought of what was coming. Far from the slaver's crown, hidden in the void between forgotten systems, Earth Command received the last transmission. A pulse, garbled, cut off mid-scream. Kepler had managed to activate the dead man beacon with his tongue, prying open the side of his jaw where they planted the emergency chip. A miracle. A curse. Because Earth Command didn't respond with rescue. They didn't negotiate, didn't plead, didn't send warships or diplomats. They sent Seraph Zero. No rank, no name, no records, no history. He had never attended a funeral because there was no one left to mourn him. He was what Earth made when treaties failed and war became holy. He was what crawled out of the black when even hell turned away in fear. Seraph Zero didn't arrive with an army. He arrived alone. And he didn't knock. The slaver's crown orbited a dying gas giant, hidden in the rusted belt of Nebula CR-33. Communication silent. Cloaked. Secure. The first sign of intrusion came at 0200 ship time, a pressure breach in Cargo Bay 9. No alarms. Just silence. Then, 30 seconds later, 2 guards were found dead, their bodies cut into segments, not by blades, but by something finer, sharper, vibrating at a molecular edge. Their armor had been peeled open like wet fruit. Their skulls cracked cleanly down the middle. Vrexel stood on the command bridge, staring into the feed. The corridor where the breach occurred was empty. No movement. Just blood. One of the walls had the word Seraph scorched into it in smoldering letters. No one saw it being written. No one saw what had done it. Aboard the ship, fears spread fast. The Kravor were many things, scientific, cruel, ambitious, but not stupid. They had heard whispers of Earth's ghost division. Untraceable soldiers, augmented into myths, biologically erased from birth records, invisible in every spectrum, but only one had ever been rumored to survive termination. Unit, Seraph Zero, the butcher of EOS, the shade of Califrax, the ghost that burned the sky at Rega Prime. And now, he was aboard. He will not escape, Vrexel hissed. Seal every gate. Engage Black Sector defense grid. Vaporize every corridor he touches. But deep in the undervents of the ship, Seraph Zero moved like a breath of death. He didn't use the main paths. He didn't trip sensors. His body was cloaked in magneto-displacement fields, rendering him invisible to radar, sonar, heat, motion, and light. He wore no armor. His body was armor. Carbon fiber musculature, nanofused bone lacing, optic sync reflexes. He carried no firearms. Just a single mono-edge carambit and a retractable wrist spike forward from void alloy that could cut through a tank like butter. As he crept through the pipes, blood from his last kill still fresh on his gloves, he whispered to no one. Kepler. He had never met the soldier, but names mattered. They were promises. And now, Seraph Zero had one to keep. The slaver's crown bled. It wasn't made to bleed. Metal doesn't feel pain. Circuits don't scream. But in the wake of Seraph Zero's silent entry, the warship groaned like a wounded beast. Somewhere beneath its hull, a corridor still smoked from a detonation that had never triggered an alarm. Emergency lights flickered. Infirmaries overflowed not with the wounded, but with corpses torn in half, sliced into ribbons, drained of everything that made them alien. The command bridge was locked under 7 magnetic seals. Yet Commander Vrexel stood utterly still. His 9 eyes twitched in different directions, tracking every data point across a projected map of his ship. Life sign monitors, heat registers, gravity stress points. All silent. That was what terrified him most. No noise, no pattern, no presence. Seraph Zero had infiltrated the Kravor's most secure vessel, with no craft, no signal trail, no identified breach vector, just arrival. As though he had simply manifested aboard. Vrexel's mandibles clacked together once. Security status. The response came from a trembling technician half hidden behind a console. His pale skin was drenched in sweat. Bay 9 to Medical Deck 6 has gone dark. No visual. No telemetry. Motion sensors report anomalous kinetic voids. Define. The technician swallowed. They say, he doesn't move like a body. He bends around motion. His not a signature. His a negative imprint. Vrexel processed this slowly. The Kravor Empire prided itself on breaking their enemies not only in body, but in spirit. They mapped every enemy genome, catalogued every scream, dissected emotion like a dissection subject. But they hadn't planned for this. They hadn't planned for a ghost with no name. Seraph Zero drifted along the ceiling vents like a spider without mass. He moved through narrow shafts designed only for coolant streams, unbothered by crushing pressure or scalding heat. His synthetic skin flexed against temperature shifts, adjusting every few milliseconds. A pulse echo sensor pinged ahead. 2 life forms. Armed. Talking. Where's his body? He was just right there, torn open, and then... Shut up. Shut up and focus. They said he moves through walls, like some kind of... Seraph dropped from the ceiling like liquid death. He didn't fall. He descended. His blade went through the first guard jaw and exited through the skull. The second turned, just in time to scream as a spinal spike erupted through his eye and dragged him backward into the wall. Both bodies hit the floor within 3 seconds. No alarm sounded. Seraph Zero paused. He scanned the ID tags on the guards, then accessed their neural implants with a soft pulse from his palm. Data flooded in. Schematics, patrol patterns, squad chatter. He saw Kepler. In memory files. The torture logs. Video footage of a human being broken in ways no language could describe. They had recorded it, catalogued it, studied it. He stared into the dead eyes of one of the guard for a moment longer, then crushed the skull underfoot. Vrexel's temple vein pulsed visibly beneath his armored skin. His claws curled against the railing of the bridge's tactical deck. Below him, through reinforced glass, command drones scuttled between systems, flicking light signals across data ports, adjusting shield patterns. The entire ship, an empire of pain, was now shrinking inward like a dying star. Every second Seraph Zero wasn't captured, morale crumbled. "He's not a soldier," one of his lieutenants whispered. "He's a containment failure." Vrexel turned slowly, his voice lowered into a sound like grinding glass. "He is a trespasser." "We found a pattern," another voice said. "He moves toward Biosector 7. Vrexel's mandibles flexed. Of course, that was where they stored the vivisection files. The failed experiments. The harvested children. Seal it. Cut gravity. Flood it with acid mist. "But, sir, the work is inside." "Irrelevant." Biosector 7 lit up in a storm of crimson and alarms. Sirens howled. Oxygen vents burst. Acid hissed through pipes, flooding the corridors with white vapor that melted flesh in seconds. Workers screamed, alien shrieks that echoed with betrayal and agony as their own security system chewed through them like meat. Seraph Zero was already inside. He stood at the edge of the primary chamber, unmoving, watching through bulletproof glass as specimens in tanks floated limply. Dozens of them. Human. Some just barely alive. Children. Civilians. Pilots. Civilians with missing limbs, organs, sometimes heads. One of the tanks bore a name. Kepler, Dane, tag #487-9. Empty. Above it, a terminal looped the final scan. Deceased. Cause, systemic nervous destruction via exonanid invasion. Seraph watched the loop once. Then again. Then a third time. A flicker passed across his face, so quick it might have been a glitch in the shadows. He knelt, removed his glove, reached into his chest compartment. Kepler's blood-stained dog tags glinted in the green light. Seraph Zero placed them on the floor before the tank and whispered, for the first time in years, "Forgive me I came late." Then he stood, turned, walked into the acid fog like a phantom, and every camera feed cut to static. In the command center, Vrexel watched the screen dissolve. Silence. Again. The only feed that remained was a biometric scanner in hallway R31. It showed 10 soldiers stationed at the choke point, and then it showed 9, then 7, then 4. Each one disappeared in less than half a second, vanished off the map like bugs crushed under invisible glass. Then there were 2. One of them started running. He didn't make it far. Vrexel turned to his chief war engineer. "Activate the Mauler." The engineer blinked. "That hasn't been tested. It wasn't ready." "It doesn't need to be ready," Vrexel growled. "It just needs to kill." The Mauler was a mech. No, more than that. It was a walking engine of annihilation. 16 feet of self-healing alloy, powered by a triple-core plasma battery and a cluster of neural kill switches. It had no pilot. It was a pilot, fused from 12 soldier brains and 4 AI modules, all coded for one directive: eradicate intruders. It met Seraph Zero in the reactor corridor. The moment it saw him, it roared. An artificial blast so loud the walls vibrated. Its cannons powered up. Seraph didn't move. Then he sprinted forward. at speeds the mecha's sensors couldn't track. The Mollusk's left cannon fired, a thermal lance designed to bore holes in battleships. Seraph slid under it, sparks dancing from his back, and slashed once across its ankle servos. No effect. The Mola kicked. The blow launched him into a wall. Metal cracked. He rose again, limping slightly. His eye was glowing. The Mola charged. Seraph Zero waited, and then leapt over it, onto its back, driving his spike down through the brain core like a goddamn executioner from hell. The Mola roared again, but this time in pain. One of its arms spasmed. The legs buckled. Seraph hung there, twisting the spike, until the machine shuddered and exploded in a bloom of white fire. The entire corridor collapsed inward. Dust and fire swallowed everything. And still, out of the smoke, he walked, a silhouette, unburned, unbent, unforgiven. On the bridge, Vrexel turned slowly, deliberately, toward his crew. "Evacuate," one of them asked, a hopeful whisper. The commander didn't answer. He simply stared into the empty feed. The ghost was coming, and there was nowhere left to run. Vrexel stood in silence. Around him, the bridge shivered under its own artificial gravity. Smoke trailed from ruptured vents. 3 consoles flickered with shorted circuits. Blood pooled beside an engineer's corpse whose head now lay several feet from his body. No one had seen Seraph Zero enter, but everyone felt him coming. It was like the ship itself trembled at his approach, not from footsteps, not from sound, but from the absence that grew stronger with every breath. Like gravity breaking. Like something wrong waking up between layers of metal. Vrexel's mandibles tapped the edge of his mouth, a nervous tick, unconscious. "Deploy all remaining war drones," he said, voice flat. "Set them to autonomous dismemberment mode. Authorize corridor fusion traps." A technician turned toward him, pale. "But, sir, fusion traps will compromise the hull integrity." "I am aware. But I am aware." Vrexel roared, his 9 eyes flaring crimson. Silence. Across the ship, steel walls hissed and rotated. Trapdoors opened. Drones as large as freight vehicles emerged, powered by rage logic, programmed to fire at anything bipedal without a verified biosignal. The fusion charges embedded in the corridor floors began to glow. Tripwires extended like ghost threads. And still, they could not find him. Seraph Zero didn't move like something in the world. He moved like something trying to erase itself from it. Deep in the vent tunnels, Seraph stopped moving. He crouched motionless as 6 drones passed beneath him, hovering, scanning, chittering with low-frequency comms. His eyes tracked their motion, not with fear, but calculation. He counted the seconds between rotations, noted the pattern in their searchlight sweeps. There, one was slow. Faulty actuator. Microsecond drift. That's the one he'd leave alive. Let it tell the others what had come for them. He dropped. No sound. No warning. One drone turned, caught a shadow, and its screen cracked before it could even broadcast alarm. Blade through its head. In. Out. A precise flick, like a painted dragging bristles through oil. Another toned. Seraph jammed his fist into its core, triggered a sonic implosion that folded its chassis like a paper cup. The rest opened fire. Too late. The ghost was gone again, diving between them, using their shots to mislead sensors. A bolt grazed his arm. He twisted, brought his heel down on a stabilizer node, and snapped the drone in half. The last one, the slow one, froze. Seraph let it live. Walked away. Blood on his boots. Smoke behind him. On the bridge, Vrexel watched the feed cut out. 4 drones. Lost. Just gone. One remained. Its camera feed was static, shaking. Then, briefly, it showed a single image. A handprint smeared in drone fluid across a wall, followed by the word, "I'm inside." The drone exploded. Panic spread in pulses. No one said it out loud, but the eyes on Vrexel were full of dread. Mutiny. Collapse. Even the high war caste weren't prepared for this kind of enemy, a being that wasn't a being, a weapon that didn't speak, a shadow with memory, and vengeance. "We have to abandon ship," someone said quietly. Vrexel turned. The voice belonged to Larrick, his second in command. a decorated butcher, survivor of 6 planetary raises. He was shaking. You would leave the minds of the children in their tanks. Vrexel asked coldly, "The extracted brains from the human colonies? The genetic samples? They are already dead. What we took from Earth is spent. If we stay, we join them." Vrexel moved without speaking. A single swipe of his claws. Larrick's throat tore open in 3 ribbons. He fell, choking, died without protest. Vrexel turned to the rest. "No more words," he said, and the room obeyed. Seraph, Zero passed through the Creo lab like a ghost in mourning. The tanks here held failures, hybrids of human and carnivore tissue, half-grown horrors with too many limbs and empty eye sockets. One reached out with a withered claw, its mouth moving without sound. He stood before it for a moment, then placed his hand against the glass. It froze, then boiled. The tank exploded inward, swallowing the abomination in a flash of red steam. No more pain. No more monsters. He kept walking. His HUD pulsed. Target, bridge, 200 meters. Time to breach, 17 seconds. On the bridge, the final defenses activated. Ceiling turrets, plasma nets, firestorm emitters. The corridor to the command center transformed into a furnace of motion-triggered death. But Seraph didn't come through the corridor. He came through the floor. One moment, the polished alloy of the bridge was undisturbed. The next, it detonated upward, not with fire, but with pure directional force. A focused charge beneath the surface tore through the deck, sending consoles flying and bodies flailing through the air. Seraph rose through the smoke like a god reborn, covered in ash, eyes burning, blade wet with General's blood. Vrexel turned. Their eyes locked. No words. Seraph charged. Vrexel leapt, faster than any human, but Seraph was faster. The commander brought down both arms, claws extended. Seraph caught one, twisted, broke the elbow, and drove his knee into Vrexel's chest with such force the alien's carapace cracked. Vrexel screamed, not in pain. In rage. He spat acid. Seraph ducked. The floor behind him hissed, melted. They clashed again, Seraph's blade against Vrexel's claws. Sparks rained. Bones cracked. Flesh tore. Then Vrexel's tail struck, a scythe of living steel. It whipped around, buried itself deep in Seraph's side. Blood gushed. For the first time, Seraph staggered. Vrexel pounced, both claws aimed for the throat. Seraph twisted, too fast. He let the tail go deeper, so he could get closer. One hand seized Vrexel's face, and the blade went in, through the jaw, into the skull, and up into the cerebral cluster behind the commander's eyes. Vrexel's scream died mid-throat. The light left all 9 of his eyes at once. Seraph held him there for a moment, then tore the blade out sideways. The body collapsed. Silence. The bridge smoked. Console lights flickered. Sparks dripped from ceiling vents. Seraph stood among the wreckage, blood-soaked, breathing slow and steady. One by one, he moved through the room, ending the survivors. No hesitation. No cruelty. Just precision. Then he toned. A panel in the wall blinked. Evacuation pods, still active. He walked to the control panel, paused, and typed the final command. Delayed detonation, core overload. Timer, 3 minutes. He turned toward the central deck viewport. Stars swirled beyond the glass, endless and silent. Seraph reached into his chest pocket, removed the tags. Kepler's name glinted under the emergency light. It's done. He walked to the pod bay. One pod, one destination. Earth. Behind him, the slaver's crown groaned one final time. And then, it burned. The pod streaked through atmosphere like a dying comet. Flames trailed behind it. Skin plates ablaze. Sonic boom splitting the sky over a silent ocean. No beacon. No ID tag. No planetary clearance. Just momentum and mission. One final course set for the Earth that had never really left. The pod hit water. Not like a splash. Like a hammer. Like vengeance finding breath again. It punched into the Pacific and sank like a bullet in meat, steam rising in a screaming hiss from the impact site. The ocean swallowed it. For 20 minutes, nothing moved. Then the hatch burst. A man rose, naked but for black carbon skin, soaked in salt and flame, walking up from the sea like a forgotten myth. Seraph Zero had returned, not to rest, not to celebrate, but to finish what was left, because Earth had changed, and not for the better. The shoreline was unfamiliar. He'd landed off course, intentional. He didn't want recovery. He wanted truth. And truth wasn't stored in bunkers. Truth bled in the streets. It took only a few kilometers before he felt the shift, not in gravity, not in air quality, but in the gaze. Cameras tracked him before he rounded corners. Drones scanned him before he touched soil. The Earth sky was gray, the clouds too uniform. The silence was manufactured. They'd rebuilt society. Sterile, safe, lobotomized. Seraph passed the ruins of an old city, San Lucas, once vibrant, now glassed over. Not bombed, not invaded, erased. The buildings still stood, but no sound came from them. No people, no lights, but the walls had signs, posters, repeating, "Order is peace. Your mind is national property. Pain is the price of rebellion." Beneath them, an image, a face he remembered. Kepler, but not smiling, not alive, not human, rendered as a caricature with crosshairs on his forehead, stamped with the words, "Condemned traitor, do not speak his name." Seraph touched the poster. Lightly, the corner tour. He looked around. No one, but the drones were watching. In the Capitol spire, 1,000 miles away, a woman sat in a chair made of steel and silence. She wore a neural shroud across her scalp, wires pouring into the ceiling. Her name was Admiral Lenyavos. Her eyes were closed, but she could see. A flash on her internal screen. Unidentified lifeform surfaced in Sector 7D, Pacific Territory. No registry, no biometric match, no ID. Yet a name surfaced from deep files, redacted so long ago no one living should have remembered. Seraph Zero. She opened her eyes, whispered into the air, "Activate protocol blackout." Seraph stood in the middle of an intersection, surrounded by empty cars. He hadn't moved in 5 minutes. Not because he was lost, because he was listening. The hum was too smooth, the air too even. Something in the wind reeked a synthetic calm. He toned. The first strike team arrived from underground. Not human. Black suit synthetics. No faces. Just mirrored visors and rifles that glowed with cobalt fire. Their weapons were quiet, not designed to kill loudly, just efficiently. They fired first. Seraph moved after bullets started. The first shot grazed his shoulder. Then he vanished between them like smoke and wind. His blade whistled once. Sharp, clean, and a synthetic's head dropped from its shoulders. The second fell with a crack of ribs, spine folding in reverse. A third lunge. Seraph caught the arm, broke it in 2 places, and drove the broken end through its own torso. No sound from the machines. But they learned, adapted. The next 5 surrounded him in perfect sync. He smiled, just a little. His fingers clicked, and 3 proximity mines exploded. The street buckled. Blackened torsos flew through the air like burning dolls. One remained, on fire, crawling, no legs. Seraph knelt, whispered, "Who sent you?" No answer. He drove the blade through its processor. The street was silent again. Admiral Voss watched the feed burn. 15 synthetics, erased, no voice, no threat issued. He was heading for central memory. Of course, that was where Kepler's data had been buried, where the last war logs were hidden, sealed away from public access, where they kept the footage, the screams, the vivisection, the humiliation. They thought they could forget, erase the martyr, rewrite the ghost. She touched her earpiece. Send the butcher unit. They didn't bother hiding it. A dropship thundered overhead, shaking windows for 10 miles. It landed in the old mall district, crushing half the parking lot. The ramp dropped. Out stepped 20 soldiers. Real ones. Modified humans. Bone-bonded, pain-conditioned, void-trained. They wore no insignia. They had no names. Just a red stripe across their helmets. The butcher unit. One of them stepped forward, taller than the rest. "Target," he asked. The officer beside him handed over a cracked screen. Seraph's photo. The man studied it, then tossed the screen to the ground. A live capture. No, the officer said. He's already dead. He just doesn't know it yet. The unit moved. Seraph reached the edge of the capital district before they caught up. He felt them before he saw them. 20 heartbeats in perfect sync. Train breath. Weapon heat. He smiled again, then disappeared into an alley. They followed. Bad choice. The first trap snapped a leg from the forward scout. A sonic spike through the ankle. He fell, screaming. The second hit 2 soldiers with a blast of liquid thermite. The others spread out, but it didn't matter. Seraph was among them before the sound of the second scream faded. He didn't fight like a man. He fought like a nightmare unchained. One soldier fired. Seraph bent sideways, impossible angle, blade through the knee, up the rib cage, spine severed. Another tried to choke him from behind. Seraph flipped him over his shoulder, onto a spike trap he'd laid 30 seconds earlier. Screams. More screams. Then none. Only the squad leader remained. Bleeding. Limping. He raised his hands. Please. Seraph stepped forward, paused, and said, very quietly, Did you watch the video? The man didn't answer. He didn't need to. Seraph's hand shot forward. Not the blade. Just fingers. He pressed 2 fingers against the soldier's temple. There was a brief flicker. Then the man's eyes widened. He dropped. Dead. Heart shut down. Memory collapsed. He arrived at central memory an hour later. The guards didn't see him. They never would. He bypassed the retinal locks. Disabled the autoguns with a whispered pulse. Walked into the core chamber like he'd been born there. The servers pulsed with cold light. He found the terminal labeled. Project, Prisoner 487 to 9, KEPD. He Saturday. Watched the file. Again. 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 The screams didn't change. Kepler's voice didn't fade. Only Seraph did. Little by little, piece by piece. When the final frame froze, Kepler's lifeless eyes staring upward, face torn, chest open like a machine, Seraph stood. He touched the screen. Whispered, I remember for both of us. Then he began deleting. Not the file, the facility, every system, every server, every digital record of what had been done. He wiped it all, not to hide it, to take it with him, because history had lied, but vengeance would not. Far above, Admiral Voss received a final message. A single word. Purged. She stood, walked to the edge of a private deck, watched as Sector D9 lit up in blue flame. Seraph had reached the end of his silence. Now it was Earth's turn to scream. Smoke rolled from what was once the capital's spinal node, curling skyward like incense for dead gods. Sirens had long stopped. The system had gone mute. No drones. No auto-alerts. No broadcasts. Just static interference rippling across once flawless infrastructure like cracks in polished glass. Seraph Zero stood at the heart of it all. Ash drifted through the air, mixing with the blood on his chest. Cuts laced his side like black thread stitching together a dying myth. His breathing was slow, controlled, though each inhale came harder than the last. He didn't care. The servers were gone. History erased, not to protect the guilty, but to make room for something true. Not digital, not spoken, witnessed, in scars, in silence. His silence. A sharp buzz cracked through his skull. An override ping, direct neural command. He didn't stop walking. Another ping. This one sharper, invasive, stabbing through the base of his cortex with raw admin authority. They were trying to shut him down remotely. He blinked. Blood dripped from his nose. A tremor passed through his fingers. He didn't stop. The final door was ahead. Not mechanical. Biometric. Organic. Alive. The vault of Earth's ruling seat. Built not with keys, but with fear. Accessible only through pain, memory, and witnessed acts of loyalty. The architect designed it so no one corrupted by empathy could ever enter. They had not accounted for him. Seraph stepped forward. The scanner scanned his body, then his mind. He let it see everything. The trench where Kepler begged. The way he screamed when the Cravor peeled back his skull. The moment his eyes locked with Seraph's, mute, pleading, while the chains held him still. The moment Seraph didn't move, let it all play. Let the machine judge him. And then, the door opened. Inside, it was cold. A silence so deep, it pressed against the soul like weight. The walls were black, curved, smooth like the inside of a womb. Holograms flickered. DNA codes, world maps, faces, every ruling name tag with votes, debts, bribes. They rule from here, fed by a machine designed to outlive civilization. At its center stood a single chair, and in it, Voss, not in hologram, not in command room. Here, waiting. She looked smaller than the stories. Hair white, eyes gray like fog, face lined but calm. A breathing mask hissed gently at her neck. Tubes ran from her body into the walls. They kept her alive so she could keep the machine alive. She didn't flinch as he stepped into the room, didn't blink as he raised the blade. "You made it," she said, voice low. He said nothing. "I've been watching you since the satellites picked up your entry vector. You're not like the rest. You never why." Still, he didn't speak. She leaned forward, mask wheezing. "I authorized Kepler's capture." No response. "I watched him die." Still silence. "And I remember what you did." He stepped closer, blade raised. "You didn't move. Not one step. Not one scream. You let them peel him open." She smiled faintly. "Do you even know why?" The silence bent. Then Seraph's voice, cold and raw, rasped out. "Because I was built to obey." "Exactly." She nodded. "They trained you, broke you, wired you to silence. You didn't choose to let him die. The blade didn't waver, but you choose to remember." She looked up at him. "That's why you're here." He didn't blink. "I've seen ghosts before," she whispered. "You're the only one who stayed dead." He stepped closer, pointed the blade to her chest, but she raised her hand, slowly, not to stop him, to offer something. A small chip, black, pulsing faint red. "This is the last recording." He stared. "No backups," she said. "No cloud. No mirrors. One copy. Kepler's voice. The real one. The one they cut." Seraph hesitated. She smiled again. A sad smile. "Before you kill me, you should know he never blamed you." That broke something. Just a little. He took the chip, slid it into his neural port. Static. Then, "If you hear this, it means you survived." Kepler's voice. Alive. Shaky. Hurt. "They told me you were a ghost. That you don't feel. That you don't break protocol. But I saw you." Seraph's throat tightened. "Even when you didn't move, I saw the pain. You think silence is weakness. It isn't. It's survival. I never blamed you. But if you made it here, you have a choice now. Don't make the same one they forced you to make back then. Don't let them write the end of our story." The recording ended. Seraph lowered the blade. Voss exhaled, relieved. Mistake. Because Seraph stepped forward and drove the blade through the floor beside her. Not into her. Into the system. The neural interface. The machine itself. It screamed. A psychic howl of metal ripping, memory collapsing. Sparks exploded from the walls. Code flashed and died. Power blinked across the vault. All of it, every blackmail file, every override key, every vote rig, purge order, citizen chain, erased. Voss's eyes widened. "No, no, what are you doing?" Seraph looked at her. "You're not worth killing." He toned, walked away. She reached out, desperate. "You think this end with me? There are others, systems, layers. You're a fool." But the vault sealed behind him. He walked through flame, through failing corridors, through silence, toward a stairwell that hadn't been used in 30 years. He ascended. The surface was cold. Dawn was trying to rise. The city below him burned, quiet fires, subtle and angry, no sirens, no recovery, only ash in the wind. Seraph climbed the last hill. At its peak, a stone. Old, cracked, one word etched in it. Kepler. He sat beside it, watched the sky change, and waited. A week passed, then two, The broadcast resumed, but not like before. The new ones weren't propaganda. They were footage of Kepler, of the torture, of the war, then the aftermath. The voice behind the footage never spoke, but they all knew the ghost had left his mark, and this time no one could erase it. Seraph was never seen again. Some say he walked into the ocean. Some say he went underground. Some say he still walks, silent, waiting for the next lie to crack. But in every city, someone painted the same message on walls, over posters, in alleys, on drone stations. Silence remembers. And beneath it, Kepler lives.